Welcome to the Story Learning Podcast, regular doses of language learning tips and motivation to help you become fluent in any language. With me, Olly Richards. For language programs, books, free resources, and much more, visit StoryLearning.com. Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. If you're learning a foreign language, you're in the right place. I know a few of them myself, and this is the place where I give you all of the things that I've learned over the years about language learning. Now, one of the things I love to do to keep myself motivated is to travel as much as possible, or at least, if not traveling, then to create some kind of community around myself. I talked about this in the last episode, and one of the things I'm doing in August this year as a bit of an experiment is I'm actually going to take a 2-week holiday. I'm going to go to Bangkok in Thailand, and I'm going to learn Thai for 2 weeks and see what I can do in 2 weeks. Probably not very much. But anyway, I wanted to say, if you are in Thailand, or if you know anybody in Thailand, or if you know of a very good Thai teacher, someone that teaches Thai, not just like any old teacher who happens to be Thai, but like a Thai teacher, if you know what I mean, then please let me know. I would love to hear from you. Maybe we can hang out in Bangkok, or if you know somebody there who might be interested in teaching or whatever, basically anything to do with Bangkok, then feel free to get in touch. You can email me. The best thing is probably to either get in touch on Facebook or else to use the contact form on the main blog on iwillteachyoualanguage.com. And I'd love to hear from you. That would be super cool. Contacts and networking with people is such an important thing for language learning. You never know when your next bout of inspiration is going to come from. Now today we've got a fantastic question from Tony, so let's get into it.
Hello, Olly. It's Tony from Mexico. And firstly, I want to thank you for such an amazing podcast. You really inspire me to keep learning. And I'm learning Danish at the moment. And the thing that I'm struggling with the most is with their pronunciation, with understanding their pronunciation. So my question is, how do you manage to cope with such a different pronunciation from what you are used to? And again, thank you for the podcast, and see ya. Cheers.
Hey Tony, thanks so much for the question, and it's a good one as well. Now, Danish is not a language that I'm familiar with, but I am familiar with a lot of languages with very difficult pronunciation. I'm thinking particularly of Cantonese and Arabic, which really messed with my head when I first started learning them. So I think there are universal rules that apply here to help you. Now, the first thing to say is it takes time. Now, I don't know how long you've been studying Danish for, but I always find with languages that there's a period of time when you first start that no matter what you do, you just need to wait for it to expire. And often I find that like the first month, often you can learn a lot in the first month. And then after that, I find that 6 months seems to be a threshold, and then 2 years. Those seem to be the big sort of landmark moments for me, like 1 month, 6 months, and 2 years. So I don't know how long you've been going for, Tony, but with pronunciation in particular, it is really just something you've got to get used to. But there are a few things you can do important things you really should do from the beginning to help you out. Now, the first thing is that, let's separate accent from pronunciation. Okay, pronunciation is what we're talking about here, and this is the building blocks, the basic sounds of the language. Okay, and so what you need to do is make sure you've got a strong grasp of the phonetics of Danish, because these are the building blocks. The basic sounds, the vowel sounds, I believe in Scandinavian languages are kind of tricky. So you've got to make sure that you study those. In terms of how to do it, well, in your textbook, something that my friend Richard Simcott said in one of our polyglot workshops that was always stuck with me. Very funny. In your textbook, like those few pages that you skip right at the beginning where they tell you all about the pronunciation, that's the bit you've got to study, all right? Because that's the bit that tells you all about the basic sounds of the language. So go back to the beginning of the textbook, get your audio out, go through systematically, make sure you can pronounce every single letter and sound of the language clearly, all right? And then once you can do that, or even at the same time, I would hire a teacher to help you with that straight away. I think with a difficult language, it's essential to work on pronunciation at the beginning because A, it makes your life so much easier later, and B, it's much easier to get it right now than to have to fix your mistakes and relearn sounds later. So hire a teacher and say, look, I just want to work on pronunciation. get them to sort of go through the letters of the alphabet and to test you on those, so that you can be sure that you've got the basic phonetics correct in the language. Now, once you've done that, then you move on to the next stage, which is actually listening comprehension, and this is what you mentioned, Tony, here. And again, it doesn't matter what language you're learning. Some languages have got particular problems with pronunciation. Other languages, like English, the pronunciation is not too bad, but you've got lots of problems with connected speech, so that when we actually speak fast, the sounds change and disappear all over the place. So really, what you need to do is just regular systematic listening. I have been learning Cantonese for a couple of years now, and I was just last night actually watching some TV drama, one of these extremely melodramatic Hong Kong family dramas. And although there's still tons I don't understand, what was remarkable for me was that I could actually pick out almost every individual word. And when I first started learning Cantonese, it was all one big mesh of like random sounds. Now I'm able to pick out virtually every single word very, very clearly. I don't necessarily know what it means, but I'm able to differentiate the tones and the sounds from that. And that's just a question of time. I've been working really hard for the last few years on Cantonese. And it's just a question of time. It just takes time. So what I would encourage you to do, Tony, is systematic listening, and start with your textbook. Make sure you've got a good textbook with lots of dialogues in, and then go through every day, listen and read at the same time. All right. So the reason you read at the same time is because it helps you distinguish the words. So whereas, if you're just listening, you might hear like a 10-syllable word, for example, or a 5-syllable word. But when you actually see it written down, you realize, oh, that's actually 3 separate words. So the reading helps you make sense of what you're listening to. Okay. The other point here is that, one of the major rules of pronunciation is that recognition comes before production. Okay. And what that means is we cannot say things accurately that we're unable to hear ourselves. So if you can't hear the sounds of Danish, you're not going to be able to say them. So you must work on recognition first, and that's why it's so important to spend lots of time listening. And then at the same time, by working with a teacher, you're going to be able to identify those problem sounds, those things that you can't quite understand. But again, the important thing to recognize, Tony, is that it's a gradual process, and you've just got to stick with it and not let yourself get discouraged. So a little bit every day, and plenty of exposure, plenty of listening in your free time, in your dead time, and that's what will do the trick. All right, so I hope that helps. If you would like to ask me a question, just like Tony has, then you can go to iwillteachyoualanguage.com/ask, and there's a little widget there where you can click on it and you can leave me a question. Also, if you've been enjoying the podcast, I'd very much appreciate a review on iTunes, because it really helps other people find the podcast. All you guys found this podcast somehow, right? Well, not everybody is lucky. Well, I shouldn't say that. Not everybody finds the podcast. But a review really, it helps tell iTunes that people are listening to the podcast, and it's more likely then that when someone goes to iTunes and searches for language stuff, someone who's keen to learn languages, it's then more likely that they will come across this one. So if you'd like to help me out by leaving a review, I'd be very grateful. You can go to iwillteachyoualanguage.com/review for that. Now, there is a resource that I always leave you with at the end of every episode, and I think for this one, I'm going to send you to episode 17, because there was a very similar question asked in episode 17 about pronunciation as a beginner. And so what I want you to do right now is head over to iwillteachyoualanguage.com/episode 17 and check out that episode, because I think through a combination of this one and that one, it will help you really get a grip around the problem. I actually probably repeat myself almost 100% between the two episodes, which is not great. But sometimes when you hear the same information twice, it kind of helps you to digest it. So if you do go to episode 17 and you hear exactly what I've just said, then guilty as charged. So yeah. Anyway, hope that was helpful, and I'll see you in the next episode of the podcast.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. And here at Story Learning, everything that I do is powered by stories, whether that's writing books, teaching lessons, crafting courses. My mission is to help everyone succeed at learning a new language through the power of story. And we now have comprehensive language courses in over 15 languages, from Spanish to French, Korean to Japanese, and across all levels from beginner to mastery. And you can take a 7-day free trial of any of these programs by visiting storylearning.com/courses. I've poured my heart and soul into creating these courses over the last 10 or so years, and we've helped tens of thousands of new students achieve their dreams of learning a new language, all through the power of story. So go ahead and take a free trial. There's no commitment. You can try out our method for free. See if this can also be the breakthrough for you that it's been for so many other people. storylearning.com/courses.